Dallas, Texas. And so they the audience and the promoters is thinking, oh well, gosh, wouldn't it be wonderful if you came to our event? But the musicians are actually saying no, because it's a long drive, the airports are full, it's a lot of hours in a vehicle. And what's happening in today's marketplace, and this is a radical change from what was that it used to be that touring was the name of the game. You put out an album and then you toured relentlessly. But because of the cost of, fuel and hotels and food and musicians and wages and everything has gone digital. So we are seeing less and less interest in people touring and performing when they have much more impact, for example, in this event that you and I are participating in right now, digital, because the future will be, and this is what's happening in Las Vegas, for example. It's like, well, bring the audience to Vegas because we're Bruno Mars or the Eagles are doing a 1 month or 2 month stand at Caesars or something, or at the Mirage or something. So the musicians are less and less interested in traveling because the cost is just so great with fuel, hotels, and time. So that, and this is an effect on the industry itself, where people say, well, yeah, sure, you can go to a stadium or an arena and see Lady Gaga or some big act, Bruno Mars, Eagles, whatever. But most of the other bands are saying, quite frankly, I'm not getting on a bus. I'm not traveling.
Yeah. Uh,
They're done with it.
well,
It's an antiquated way of living and performing. Traveling is on a bus is not that appealing.
yeah. Well, I know it's not the '50s anymore or the '60s and all that, but
Or the 80s.
oh, the '80s. Yeah, 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 yeah. You know. Well, let's officially get this interview started now because I hit the record button. So hopefully we should be good here, and I got the scroll down good. So, uh, yeah, I'm gonna do an introduction for you, and then we'll just go into it. All right.
Right.
All
Right.
right. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's summertime, and we're taking a little bit of a break from doing the interviews on Renegade Radio as we transition between season 4 and season 5. That's coming up here Monday, August 4th. Well, the crew and I will be back for season 5 of Renegade Radio, or Frankie's Lost his Renegade Radio. But in the meantime, in between time, I, as you know, like to do some exclusive interviews sometimes here and there. And this guest that I have for you is somebody who I wanted to have on the show, since we started the Renegade Radio podcast. But he's been awfully busy, but he's been busy for a good reason because he's been producing a lot of great music and going on tour and just having a good time and being somebody that I've been a fan of for the last 6 or 7 years, at least since like 2017 or 2018 when I was doing a little Facebook search for some of the best, or maybe even unknown independent or big blues stars. And I discovered this guy named Brad Guitar Wilson. At the time, I just called him Brad Wilson, but now I know this has become himself Brad Guitar Wilson. Uh, I discovered him, and he was one of the guys whose music I really started to root to. And then I discovered that he did some stuff in the early days of the Sunset Strip. Yes, right. It's a hard word to say sometimes. So the early days of the Sunset Strip days, when he did some stuff that wasn't really blues related, but it was more like '80s rock or grunge or whatever you like to call it. And that stuff really blew me away that he did all that stuff. But he's been doing a lot of stuff lately, more of the blues or the rock type of genre, maybe even jazz a little bit too. I see it there. But ladies and gentlemen, for making his fourth appearance in interviews that I can recall anyway, my good friend Brad Guitar Wilson. How you doing, Brad?
Great, Sean. It is super to see you again, a longtime friend, and I appreciate your support for musicians and music. You got a great show. I keep up with you. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a guest today. Looking forward to it. Talking to you from Central California. It's not hot. It's summertime. It is warm, and I'm feeling
Uh,
good. Feeling good, and looking forward to spending time with you and your audience. Thanks for the invitation.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, we're honored to have you because, like I say, I wanted to get you back here for quite a while, and because since the last time we spoke in 2021, I did a few interviews here and there, via Zoom and stuff, trying it out, whatever. But then I decided that I wanted to do a podcast, and even though most of these things that I've done is you could treat it like a podcast, I guess, but I wanted to do an actual podcast, something that was different than I've ever done before. And I wanted to see if it was going to work because sometimes ideas are good, sometimes ideas aren't so good. But what do you do when most of the ideas that you wanted to do have already been done by other people? Well, you try to come up with a way to create a show that is somewhat different than the norm. You find people that you have probably interviewed before, but you are also a fan of, and that would you think would be a great member to add to your crew. So, Brad, I have about 7 or 8 people that are on my crew. Okay, they're not here today because we're obviously on a break today or until August. But on the regular show, I have about 7 or 8 people in there from all walks of life. They're actors, they're entertainers in their own right. They're people who do radio. They're people who are nephews to Wolfman Jack that live out in Vegas. A whole slew of people. But we come together on Monday nights and do a show where we interview people in the worlds of entertainment and we talk about pop culture and what's going on in the world. And you're definitely one of those people that are definitely a good fit for that type of format because of the stories that I guarantee that you have that you could tell because I feel like you are a story guy. Your songs are story related, even though they might feel different. But I always feel with your music, you're trying to tell a story in everything that you do. You're just doing it in your own special way.
Yeah, well, I can't believe how much fun it is to follow this journey of music. It's been a good life. I'm pretty excited about everything. Today, we have the number one record for 2 weeks in a row, Roots Music Reports radio chart. The new album's called The Californian. And wow, I just woke up and I was thinking it probably is not going to, be there again, but 2 weeks in a row, and then boom, number one song on Blues Rock as the single, Say You Wanna Dance. Wow. And I turned the next page on the computer, and there it is, the top four blues album and top four, no, number one blues song. And so we are blowing up at radio, and this is 2 weeks in a row. The album, The Californian, available at all digital outlets, it just came out and it rocketed right to the top. We got some incredible musicians: Tony Brungle on drums, Chris Ryan on keyboards, and the incredible producer of Francis Buckley, Grammy Award winning producer. So for sometimes you bring the songs in, you record them, and then there's just some magic. And this album has a lot of bing bang boom magic.
Would you say it has a little bit of blues magic? I know that was one of your songs that you won.
You remember that song. It's nice to be with you,
Oh,
Sean. You know a lot about my music. Thank you for remembering. It's nice to be with you today.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, we go way
absolutely.
back.
Yeah, I mean, back in 2017 or so, I was bored one day and I decided I wanted to, add some people to my friends list on Facebook just to see if it, just to try this experiment, see if it works, see if I engage it. Because some people, like to be, like to communicate with fans. Some people, don't want to be bothered at all. and some people don't even answer their own fans when who've gotten too big in their careers. And I felt with a guy like you, with before listening to your music, or when I started listening to your music, I feel like this is a guy that I think I could engage and get to know and everything. And in that short time, and because it's been a short time, it feels like a long time already. I was still in South Dakota at the time, and in that time we've gone to come back to Minnesota, got to a damn pandemic that kind of changed everything, and then now things are kind of going to get back to normal somewhat, and life is, at least for me, I can say maybe it's better than it was in South Dakota, but I'd be lying a little bit because I do miss my South Dakota days. But for you, I mean, you seem like you've done some good things. Going on tour, making the music. I mean, constantly creating. That's one thing that I find really cool about you is because there are a lot of artists that want to just like take breaks or whatever and give up and not record nothing new for like 5 or 10 years. But you're always on the ball. You're always making new music. Why is that?
Well, I've changed my as opposed to doing a lot of touring, which I've done quite a bit in my life. It's been especially the last 4 years. In 2022, I released the Brad Guitar Wilson album, and that did very, very well. And then we went in 23, we released Lovers Before Sunrise. And I had started touring Europe in 2019, just completed my 10th tour of Europe, primarily on the continent. And then in 2024, we had an album that just blew up called Buckle Up. And that really started to get a lot of worldwide chart action. And then now in 2025, we have the new album, The Californian. So what has been going on has been a lot of songwriting, a lot of recording, both in Europe, in Brussels, Amsterdam, in Hollywood. And so my time has been spent most writing and recording, with bringing the records out, every year has been my primary goal, as opposed to spending a lot of time on the road traveling. So I do play a lot of shows, mainly on the Central California coast in a town called Monterey. And I got a new song on the new album called Monterey. You got to check it out. But the my time, which is what I'm mostly focused on, is unfortunately, I'm lucky I'm in good health, but I spend most of my time writing and recording.
Okay, okay. And in that process, when you decide to write a song, like how long does it normally take from the time that you come up with the idea to get it finalized? Because I'm sure sometimes you can get the case of the writer's block or like a brain fart or something that'll happen where it's like, oh, that sounds like a good idea, but I don't know, it doesn't make any sense, so we got to start all over again. Do you ever have those moments at all?
Well, no, I write a tremendous amount of songs. I turn them into the producer, Francis Buckley. So going into any album, I'm going in with maybe 25, 30 what I call sketches, which would be drafts of the song. And then Francis Buckley's coming back and saying, no on a lot of it. And then the stuff that kind of, he says, yeah, that really, I think we got something there. Then I take it into a demo studio here in town, not very far that from my house, that a good friend of mine has. And then we kind of put a drum machine, bass, guitar, vocals on it, and kind of get it shaped up enough to where you could see where it's going. So the process of songwriting, demoing the song, ultimately taking it into the studio for the pro musicians, and then moving into mix down and marketing, that whole assembly line is takes up a lot of time. And once you embark on that program of, the songs, writing wise, for me, it's I've always been primarily a songwriter all my life. So you're getting these ideas. You might have a sentence, or you might see a phrase or it might be a riff, and that little sentence or phrase or riff or that little bit sparks you to start to take it a little bit farther. And then you might kind of catalog that on a piece of paper or on my phone, and then I go back and add it to something else. But this whole lifestyle of writing and recording and releasing albums is time consuming, and it's engulfing, as opposed to my very good friends that are professional nightclub musicians that spend every weekend performing somewhere, which is time consuming because you got to go there, move the gear, learn the songs, work with the band, do the whole live thing. And I do a lot of shows. I just finished the entire month of May going across France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. A gorgeous time of the year and an incredible experience completing my 10th tour. But if I am going to travel and sing and play, and we were doing at one point 9 out of 11 nights performing, 2 shows a night. They're 1 hour shows with an intermission. If I'm going to do something like that where I'm really putting my body through a lot of stress, I want to do it where I'm motivated, and that not to take anything away from the United States, but having toured the United States for 3 solid years, it's more appealing to me to be in the French countryside than it is to be somewhere in the United States touring.
Sure, 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 sure. Now, I had an idea for you that this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do an interview with you because I was thinking, and maybe this is a dumb idea, but I don't think it is. I think this would be a very creative idea. To give you kind of a break from writing and stuff so much and come up with some new material. What I think you should do is go back to your Sunset Strip days, pick out some of those songs that you did, like 10 or 15 songs that you did back in those days, and do like a revival of that, and make that like the next album you do, or whatever, or release before you retire. Do a revival on that and try to see if you can get some of the old band members back and. I think that because I love it. I love sometimes hearing what it sounds like now after all these years. Maybe it won't sound nearly as good, but sometimes it does. I don't call it like a re-record. Call it more like an upgrade to some of the favorite songs that you performed back in the day. You think that ever be possible, or is that kind of a one and done type
Absolutely.
of deal?
I totally agree with you. I came out of San Francisco and got into Los Angeles and the Sunset Strip in the late 80s. And the groups that were coming up at the time, Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and Poison, and they were all, just right in that, the Whiskey and the Roxy, Gazaris, all on the strip. And I was a pretty young guy, and you could just go out and stand on Sunset Boulevard in front of the Roxy, and the street was crowded with hundreds and hundreds of kids from one end to the other, and the bands handing out their flyers saying, come see me Friday night at the Whiskey, and the whole band would be just sitting on the corner there in front of the Whiskey. It was actually more fun to be outside of the clubs than it was to be inside because everybody was cruising and walking around. But yeah, I have all the master tapes from the recording sessions because I was lucky enough to, when I first got to Los Angeles, I was signed to RCA Records and then signed to Epic Records, and I did a lot of recording with the musicians outside of the labels. So I have those masters. So yeah, and I'm still in contact with all those musicians. We could go into the studio and replicate that sound with modern technology. Of course, back then everything was 2-inch tape and analog equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it sounded good. It sounded good. I
Yeah.
have all that stuff. But yeah, I could, and those players are around. A lot of them are still doing something somewhere. But yeah, the Sunset Strip, the Roaring '80s. What a wild, wild time. The thing is, Sean. What was, I've always been kind of a health oriented person and focused on my guitar playing, the core. Make sure your guitar playing and what you're doing is always about guitar first. And so it kind of got me through the 80s because people were dealing with a heavy amount of drugs and alcohol. I mean, it was just the way it was. And it looks like there's a picture of Sam Kinison behind you, but I'm not totally sure. But Sam
It's an AI.
Kinison,
It's an AI creation, yeah, for the
yeah,
logo.
Sam was right in the middle of all that. And yeah, I just don't know. I mean, John Belushi, he died at the Chateau Marmont, and Sam out on the highway going to Vegas or something. And, they were musicians were dropping left, right, and center from drug overdose. And there was a new book that just came out. I saw that the manager for Guns N' Roses just released about, they were shooting heroin backstage before the Rolling Stones concert where they were opening up there at the stadium. These days, the 80s, again, my hero during that was Jeff Beck. And I remember I was with Jeff Beck in Vegas, and he was doing a clinic, and I was lucky enough to be the backup band. And I remember the couple exciting moments when Jeff Beck turned around to me and said, "What key are we doing Rock Me Baby?" And but the idea was that what I loved about Jeff Beck being the hero was that his message was that if you're not practicing guitar 2 hours a day, you're only hurting yourself. But
Oh.
yeah, but the message, Sean, was, don't get caught up in all the nonsense when you're really there just to play guitar.
So you never got into, like, I mean, I'm sure you enjoyed a beer now and again, but you were never into like the big alcoholic or into the drug scene at all. You were just there to perform, and you kept your nose pretty clean, we'll say.
Well, in the days of cocaine, I think keeping your nose pretty clean may have been the exact right thing to say there. I think you might have hit the nail right on the head there. But no, the key thing is always about the work, and I think the really musicians that go on to be very successful, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, I mean, uh, Jeff Beck until we recently lost him, and Clapton in later years. It's always about the work. It's the excitement of recording and playing guitar. I mean, playing guitar, if you can really get it going, is a buzz.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that because I think the world would be a lot better place if people just more focus on the work and instead of like if you want to party and all that stuff and all that, that's fine. Do it after hours or whatever, but focus on you're here for business and you're here to do a job. And once the job's done, then play how you want. But for me, I never, even all these years later, I'm 41 years old now. You know, I still don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do any of that stuff. Might be sound kind of lame, but it's just well, I'm kind of health conscious too a little bit, because so many people do that. And around this area here, drugs are bad, and drinking people like to drink too much, and they don't know how to control themselves. And it's just it's nice to know there's some people out there like you that will never hear a story about Brad Wilson's days in rehab, or whatever,
Yeah,
that sort of
it's
thing.
no, when I'm traveling in Europe, and one thing about Europe is they have a lot of restrictions on the food additives, which is different here in the USA. I mean, they 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 don't really buy a lot of our chicken or beef and a lot of our food because it's got too many, chemicals in it. Over there, they're super restrictive. But the point being is that with a really delicious meal, and they make some incredible quiche over there. I do like a glass of wine. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, I will say that really good wine, and we make some really good wine here in California. So and I have to refer to my doctor who says, Brad, you know, a glass of wine can help you sleep. So yeah, I highly recommend wine with meal. I mean, you don't want to drink too much because it'd be a mean hangover, But
Sure,
you
yeah.
a wine hangover? Are you kidding me? I wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
that
mean,
would be
hey, I mean,
whew,
I heard I heard rumors that like Joe Bonamassa before he performs, he has a glass of wine or every before every performance. I don't know if it just helps him get to the performance or what, but I don't know.
I think
That's
it's a good
in a
idea.
documentary I've seen.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a good idea. I'm going to go with Joe on that. Glass of wine before the performance. I think it's a good idea. What a phenomenal guitar player. I mean, guitar and music. Is there anything more exciting? I mean, gosh, new records and listening to all the
Uh,
talented artists. And when you discover a song that just is so cool and it just gets you where you go, wow, wow, wow. I just love music and I love its effect. And it's a universal thing. I mean, you can be anywhere in the world and just plug in a guitar or grab some drums or whatever. Everybody knows the songs. You don't even have to speak the same language. Everybody knows the music. It is a way to communicate all around the world.
Oh, and see, that's why I wanted to be like a radio guy or podcaster or something because even though I can't play a lick, I can probably sing a little bit or whatnot. But like as far as an instrument, I don't know how to play really anything. But I figured the best way to be able to be involved in the entertainment industry, somewhat anyway, was either to be a radio guy where you're constantly promoting things all day anyway, or be a podcaster, or do something within entertainment so that your name is still synonymous to people that you know in the music industry. Because I grew up liking Buddy Holly. That was my first love of music, and that was because of my dad. My dad grew me up on old music and stuff, and the oldies or whatever. And then we would listen to the radio together. We'd always like listen to the oldies station together on the radio, and that kind of helped me decide what I want to do as a career. And no, I didn't graduate from the department, but I feel like over the 20 years or so that I volunteered for the local college to learn the craft and learn how to do interviews and all this other stuff, that it helped me shine a little bit more on my current performance today because I do the podcast because nobody will give me a job in radio around this area or farther away. I don't know why I was able to get a job in the TV business in South Dakota out of all things, but I couldn't get a fucking radio job. That's to save my life. However, I have some friends that are musicians. Other than yourself, I also have interviewed like Greg Kidd, the late Greg Kidd. He just passed away last year. He's from your area. He was well known around your area.
You bet. San
Uh,
Francisco.
yeah, yeah. I interviewed his drummer Larry Lynch here just recently, and Robert Berry, one of his bandmates and record producers. And they're all from that area, and it's just like it's amazing to see like how much I built in my own personal career of knowing musicians and knowing people. I always tell people like I know all these people, but the only thing is the reason why I don't do anything with them at all that's not music related is because I don't live in the area that they live in. I'm sure if I lived a lot closer, we'd be probably trying to do something together. Or you'd need somebody to be your announcer or your somebody to host your gigs or something just to give you a good intro and get the crowd going. I'm definitely good at doing that type of stuff, but I don't do that often.
Well, yeah, if I ever get near you, you can definitely pop on stage, grab the microphone, and get the show started. Absolutely. The thing about what you're doing is the future. It's as I'd mentioned before, getting on a bus and trucking across the Great Plains is not really the first choice of any musician, no matter where they are on the charts or what they're doing. It's just too time consuming and difficult. And the point being is that what you're doing digitally and what's going on with the world, everyone has a cell phone, and I don't care where they are in the world, everyone is tuned in to the entire globe. So the future is digital. The future is on your cell phone. The future is everybody everywhere simultaneously being tuned in to the same place. So what you're doing and what you're talking about is a little bit like my records. And it said, people, you know, you can perform and be heard for more people on an internet broadcast than you could if you got on a bus and spent the next 6 weeks playing, clubs. So the future is all about the internet and gosh, satellite broadcasting. Everybody is got a. I mean, you could go to the most remotest parts of the world. They got a cell phone. Boom, they log in. Boom, they are in with what's going on. So, setting up a stage and plugging your guitar in and playing, yeah, that's cool. And it can actually hit quite a few people, but nothing like the numbers that with what you're doing. You're a pioneer on the future. The future is what you're doing.
So yeah, you ever thought about doing a podcast or being a part of a podcast or just
I'm
you
doing one
know,
right now.
yeah, yeah. But I'm talking about your own. I'm talking like the Brad Guitar Wilson podcast where you bring some of your friends involved and then host your own podcast.
No,
You ever thought
no,
about that at all?
no. The thing is with me, Sean, is I got to stay to the core of what I do. And this goes back to, what Jeff Beck was saying. For me, it's guitar, songwriting, chops, gear, and kind of always staying at the core. I never want to wander away from what is really important to me. I do sing on all my songs. My voice is important to me, but yeah, it's the guitar is so deep. It's like a boat in the middle of an ocean. I mean, wow. I mean, there's just you never even begin to scratch the surface of what you can do with the guitar. I mean, wow. I mean, once you start getting into different amplifiers, different guitars, different parts of the neck, different phrasing, different uses of the hands, finger picking, uh, using the guitar from a rhythm instrument to a lead instrument. I mean, you're kind of imagine you're in a sailboat out in the middle of the ocean. There is the possibilities are unlimited. So the last thing I want to do is to, you know, take any time away from what potentially could be a very exciting breakthrough at any given moment.
Well, have you ever thought about? I'm sure you're in that age gap now where it's like, and I don't mean to be negative about anything or whatever, but I mean, have you thought about the long term goal? I mean, like how many more years do you have in you to perform?
I'm going to play until I drop dead, hopefully on stage. But it
Oh,
could be a recording studio. No, it's about health. I mean, that really dictates everyone's life. Everyone loves to do what they love to do. Everyone wants to be happy with, a beautiful day and finding the joy and the love out there. So it's about health. If I'm feeling okay and I got my health, then I'm going to be doing music. So my goal is to do music right up until my health fails. Uh, you know, the focus, of course, is not to be boring for a moment, but it's a lot of it is about diet, exercise, rest. You know, positivity. So,
sure.
where is the ultimate goal? Is obviously if I don't take care of myself, I'll be dead a lot quicker. But as long as I take care of myself, I'll be doing music. I really don't like to do other things. I don't like to golf. I don't like to sail. I don't like to hunt. I don't like to. I haven't found any tennis, golf. What? What am I
Yeah.
going to do? There's nothing out there that interests me. The only thing I like to do is play guitar. So it'll be me, guitar, and hopefully my ability to continue to do that. I mean, a lot of my heroes are going into what are the Stones are in their 80s. I think Clapton's still out there. Whew, you know, I think BB King played right up till the day he died. So my goal is to play music right up until the day I die.
And even like Willie Nelson, I'm surprised, at 92 or 93, he's still going on stage and still perform in sold out venues and stuff. You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
Willie Nelson, that's a great example. Bob Dylan, and Willie Nelson is such a great songwriter. Gosh, I mean, it really is. And I was disappointed that we lost Tom Petty. I mean, I think that was kind of a tragedy. I think it could have went a lot longer. But
oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Wow. I mean, whew. But I think the focus is on quality of music and doing what you love, and hopefully, I'll be able to make quite a few records. Just today, waking up, I having the number one record with the number one song. I'm going into Europe in October. Just got out of there in May. I got a sold out show in San Francisco on July 4th at Biscuits and Blues. It's an amazing room. It will be absolutely off the hook. I've got some musicians that are startling when I hear them play. I mean, it just stops me in my tracks. So right now, it's a dream come true.
And that's great. You know, that's why that's kind of what I'm glad that you were talking about because I'd hate to see anything happen because you are a good musician. That's why I love listening to your music. So I love listening to your old stuff. You know, I mean, it's like it's a combination of everything, a combination of just being a very talented person and getting having that gift. You know, like when you taught yourself or whoever taught you to play guitar, uh, what was it about the guitar that said that this is the instrument that I gotta play? Okay, other than playing the drums or a trumpet or any of that stuff. Why what made the guitar so special to you in your life?
Well, I mean, I was growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and there was a guy named Bill Graham that was putting on concerts every weekend. So for us going to the Fillmore or Winterland or Day on the Green was kind of like going to the clubs in a way. So, I was going to see groups by the time I was in the eighth grade. We would just put a bunch of us, we'd all jump in a car, we'd go to San Francisco, we'd go to the Fillmore. Uh, the tickets were very cheap. Bill Graham used to give you an apple coming out and what was going on next. And all it was, I grew up in a renaissance where, well, who's in town this weekend? Well, how about Muddy Waters? How about James Cotton? How about the Electric Flag? How about Cream? How about Zeppelin? How about the Stones? It was like, well, gosh, here I am. I'm like in the seventh grade, and I'm standing there, and Bill Graham introduce Jimmy Page on guitar, John Bonham on drums. He brings them out one at a time, and the next thing you hear is bang, 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 and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, what? And then Jimmy Page, he's got, Les Paul and the band just proceeds to go through some of the Zeppelin catalog, and as a kid at seventh, eighth grade, you're going like, whoa, this is exactly something I want to figure out. So, you go get a guitar and you start to try to learn the riff.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, you're off into it. You're way off into it. And then you're talking to your friends at school and they say, well, what's going on this weekend? And they say, well, we're going up to San Francisco. We're going to see, Humble Pie. We're going to see the Jeff Beck group. And on top of that, Chuck Berry's headlining. We said, well, let's go. So, we get in there, we press to the front of the stage, and then out comes, and I'm thinking, well, gosh, how are you going to follow Humble Pie, Steve Marriott, and, everybody, Peter Frampton on guitar? And then all of a sudden, you're a kid and you press to the front of the stage. So the stages were only about 5 or 6 feet tall. And so you're standing there and out comes Chuck Berry and he's in his prime and he's duck walking and he's doing roll over Beethoven. And you turn to your friend and say, who is this? And Chuck Berry is just like smoking through these songs and everybody's like going, what is going on? And of course, Chuck Berry is like, he's playing rock and roll. And so rock and roll becomes like a lifestyle. It becomes like something, it's not like, well, it's like, what is it? It's called rock and roll, and then everybody that Chuck Berry. It was a lot of them, Little Richard. There was so many great ones that started it off, Elvis. But rock and roll is beyond the guitar. Beyond the guitar is a lifestyle called rock and roll. It's 24 hours, 365 days. It's a full commitment to this thing called rock and roll.
Oh man, I'm so envious of you, my friend. I tell you, I can only imagine, because I was born in the '80s, so I didn't really know a lot about music until probably a little later in life or whatever, or I had an appreciation for that. So growing up in northern Minnesota, we had little events and stuff here and there or whatever, but like to experience what you experienced, man, I think I probably would have been a musician too, if I would have experienced the same thing you did.
It was
Absolutely.
it was going on Chicago, Memphis, St. Louis, New Orleans, New York, Boston, Cleveland. It was going on. I remember I was touring. I went through the Cleveland Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and wow, it's like a giant building, must be 3 or 4 stories, and they rotate the exhibits, so they have everything from everybody. I mean,
Oh,
they got everything. It's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and then as you go through each floor, they have like a stage setup. It's not, it's just a couple inches off the floor, but they'll have all of the equipment, the original touring equipment that they've gotten from the musicians. Uh, like with James Cotton, a super famous a harmonica player, and they had like his small briefcase and his harmonicas, and you could imagine coming out of Chicago on those clubs when you had Muddy Waters and Junior Wells and James Cotton, and everybody's recording the records, but everybody's getting paid in cash. So you're there, and the club is packed, and you're on the south side of Chicago, and James Cotton comes into the office with the boss there, and he says, "Well, here's a stack of money. You still got to get that money out of the club." And then you got to get that money across town, pay the musicians. Everybody's got to get out of there. So it wasn't a credit card era. It was cash. And of course, you remember that story where Zeppelin is at that New York hotel after they did 3 or 4 nights at Madison Square Garden. Again, we're talking cash for everything, for all the merch and all the things. So, Peter Grant, the manager, he's got suitcases full of cash as he jumps into the limousine, heads over to the hotel. Boom, the next day, somebody hits the hotel and steals a bunch of Zeppelin's cash right out of the hotel safe.
jeez.
I mean, this was
Oh,
not a credit card check era. This was
no,
people wore suitcases full of cash.
man, can you imagine that? Jeez. Back in the day, they didn't think about, they thought about the future a little bit, but not so much. Because I remember watching like the Buddy Holly story and then seeing how they traveled and how they did things and stuff. And I'm just like, man, I don't think that would go so much now, today, in today's world. I prefer the credit card world now because it's just like, all you gotta do is just put a number in and then boom, bang, bang, boom, there you go, you're paid. You know, no big deal.
They don't
And
do
you
a
can
lot
have
of cash
thousands
over
of
Europe. Yeah, no cash. Everybody's got debit cards in Europe. They figure it is some way to cut back on crime. So we're seeing a lot less cash worldwide as they figure the only people, if you don't have a debit card connected to a bank, it's surprising. So yeah, I think we're seeing less and less cash everywhere.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Brad, I tell you what, I really appreciate you letting me do this interview with you. It's been a long time coming, but it's been worth the wait though the last 4.5 years. Just because you've always been a good guest, and it's good to see that you're still rocking and rolling. And if we can ever get you, to come up to my area, whatever it may be, I think I know I would appreciate it, but I know the people around this area especially would because, like I told you before, we're thirsty and we're hungry. We haven't eaten in a long time.
It would
We
be a
need it.
pleasure to visit you. I think it'll happen. We're the records are just keeping getting bigger and bigger. This new one, the Californian, the website's bradwilsonlive.com. We are continuing to have more and more success. I know that that day will arrive. I look forward to having you introduce the show, Sean. It's going to be a blast to be on stage with you, and oh, it'll be amazing. And I love. I have. There's so much great music coming from the northern United States because I like the vibe. A lot of people like the freedom, the open space, they like to be able to roll where it's not all, overdeveloped. So, but I do like Milwaukee especially. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you. The new record, The Californians, doing good. I think it's got some great songs. I hope you check it out. And I hope your audience checks out bradwilsonlive.com.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we love having you, Brad, and much success to you in the future, my friend.
Sean, you be well. I look forward to speaking with you again. Thank you for this invitation to spend some time with you.
Oh, absolutely. We'll talk to you later, my friend. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was Brad Guitar Wilson right here on Renegade Radio. Hey, we'll be back with some more great interviews here soon. And then season 5 of Renegade Radio will be, or Frankie Slaus's Renegade Radio will be up and running. Monday, August 4th, we'll be back, 2025, day after SummerSlam weekend. And we're upgrading some things. We got a new logo, new banner, some new things happening. If you notice that we were using the free stream today for the server, so couldn't really use a whole lot of different banners or anything. But this was great. This was really really great. So thank you, Brad Guitar Wilson, and thank you, audience. And we'll see you next time for another great edition of Frankie Slaus's Renegade Radio. Bye bye, everybody.